Good morning guys, welcome back to my channel. Today it is a Tuesday and it is like 9:30 right now, and I am going to make a start on my next essay, which is due on Friday at 5 PM. Quite a few people have requested that I do a video documenting my essay writing process from like right at the beginning in the planning stages to finishing writing it. Obviously this is going to be filmed over a few days, sort of going to be vlog style, sort of going to just be me chatting to the camera because it is an informative video as opposed to like a fun one. Basically right now I'm going to show you how I initially approach a question, what I do immediately, how I sort out the reading and what I'm going to read next and in what order, etc. If you're wondering, yes, this is Unjaded Jade merchandise. I really need the motivation right now, so this is my like comfy tee. I'm sorry about the background noise, the scout is hoovering someone's room, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So my question this week is this: how can stable isotopes help identify a person's origins, and how well does this evidence stand up? And these are my readings. This module's actually got pretty short reading lists, as you can see. So normally we'd probably have double this in like anthropology modules, but yeah, these are quite short because they're scientific. So the ones that I've highlighted in blue are like key texts, which I definitely need to read, or at least like get to grips of the conclusions and abstracts. And the yellow ones are ones that are like extra ones, which I think will be pretty interesting and case study detail filled. So yeah, that's what I've done so far. So after I've got my title and kind of just had a quick look through the reading, I identified which ones looked interesting to me and which ones the tutor had already said were the most important with like a little asterisk. I will break down the question into little sections and just see what sort of information I need to pull out of the text so that my reading is efficient as possible. So as this question is about stable isotopes, I know that I need to define stable isotopes, pick out what they are, different ones, and how they can be used within archaeology. The next key bit of information in the question is person's origins. So if I'm looking into how isotopes identify people's origins, I need to discuss what is meant by origins. So I would define the word origins. In the text I'd look for like a scientific definition of origins, and if I can't find one, then in the actual writing I would kind of come up with one myself and just say this is my definition. Other people may say different. And the last part of the question is how well does this evidence stand up? And this is where you would bring in your case studies. So for this, essentially, it is just saying how can, in theory, stable isotopes identify people's origins, and what case study evidence have we got to back this up, and does it go with the hypotheses? I can see from the reading list that we definitely have a case study on the Neolithic. However, that one is the only one which looks specific, so for now I will just write a Neolithic case study in like my thing to look out for. But also we had a lecture and Stonehenge was discussed, as was US-UK war victims from the 1800s and also veterans of the Vietnam War. So I will look back over my lecture notes, and then if those case studies aren't in any of these readings, then I will go on to Google Scholar and essentially try and find my own texts that aren't on the reading list which back up the case studies which I know I want to use. I'm gonna have some breakfast now because I still haven't yet, but then I've got about 2.5 hours to start doing some reading, so ideally I can get 2 done in that time. Depends on like how much information is in it, how dense they are, but normally Actually, these articles are a lot shorter than ones I'd read for other subjects, like there's some which are only 4 to 10 pages. So yeah, I could probably get 2 of those done in 2 hours. But the long ones are gonna take me longer, but that's fine. It's not a quick process, and if you're writing an essay like from start to finish in a day, then you've either left it too late or you're rushing it. Either way, it's not going to be your best work, and I know that from my own personal experience, having started the reading several times on the day that the essay's due in. It's not a good strategy. I look really ill sat back here, but I'm not. I'm gonna start reading now. So I've decided to read the Neolithic case study first, purely because I'm trying to, purely because I'm trying to get as much done as I can in the amount of time that I've got this morning. So I'd rather not start one of the big articles and then not quite get my head around it, come back and have no idea what's going on and have to start again. So I'd rather do one of these. So this one is only 10 pages. It is on the Neolithic. What I'll do is I'll write out the reference. So for example, this is Bentley AR 2013, and I will put my notes underneath this. I'll also highlight it because it's easier to see, and then hopefully by the end of it I'll have quite a lot of notes that I can put into a plan. When you're looking at articles, the best place to start is the abstract. Don't skip over the abstract. I used to in like first year when I didn't really know what I was doing, but the abstract practically sums up the whole argument and the findings in a paragraph. So if you really have no time, then the abstract is the best place to go. Obviously I would recommend not just reading the abstract, at least the abstract and the conclusion, and maybe even the discussion as well if it is a scientific article. But the abstract is definitely a place to start because it also tends to explain things better than the actual thing, which might be a bit wishy-washy. And also don't note everything. Only note things that you think are going to help your question, which is why I did the breakdown of the question which I showed you, because now I can only take, because now I can focus myself on taking bits of information that would fit into one of these 3 sections, which is why like planning your research is so vital. I've now finished noting that first article. Yeah. So I've done like, how many words? 1,434. And now I'm gonna read this next one, which has a star next to it, so I knew I needed to read it. But also, it was quoted in the article I just read, so I thought, yeah, I should probably read that so I know the context. I'm currently still on track. Like, I've actually only got half an hour till I have to go because I have a gym class at 12:15, but it's only 8 pages, so I think it'll be fine. And yeah, once I've done that, then I've done like my target for this morning, and I can carry on later and show you where I've got up to. But I'm just gonna basically read it exactly the same, again going for information based on the way I've split up the question. I've just finished that article. It actually only took me 20 minutes. That is because I've developed a new technique of taking notes. So basically, instead of going through like the whole article and typing out my own notes and then not really knowing whether it's the right thing to write down, which is one of the hardest things about like actually taking notes from research. Instead, what I've started doing is just like copying and pasting whole sentences which somehow answer my question in some way. So for example, for part of my question I need to talk about the type of stable isotopes, and so I've copy and pasted a whole quote which tells you about the beginnings of isotope archaeology, and then from that, when I make my plan, I will whittle it down further. So essentially I've just turned a whole article into 2 pages of key bits of information, but where I actually want to keep it as a quote, I've made it italics and like left the page number. So like here, for example, I've written about it, but then this one I actually want to keep the quote. So like here, for example, I've written about it, but then this one I actually want to keep the quote. So I've basically taken these notes. These are also copy and pastes, but I'm not gonna write them in those exact words, so it doesn't matter. But this one, if I actually want to take even just a part of that as a quote, I need to know the page number. So yeah, it just makes it a lot quicker and also a lot more efficient in that I've got a lot of words now which I can condense. And I know all of this isn't gonna go in, but like I've skipped whole pages that I skimmed through and didn't particularly think would fit my question as such, because these articles have so much information and most of the skill is actually being able to identify what information is worth noting down. And one of the tips I would give for like choosing which information to note down is that you're probably best reading the whole thing without like wanting to in-depth note it first. So, which is why I am copying and pasting these quotes, because essentially what I'm doing by doing this is highlighting bits that I think are important, and then when I do my plan I'll go back through, process the information and turn it into like my actual interpretation of the text. I am back, it's the afternoon now, like I've just had lunch and I'm currently reading this article, come on, and I'm more amused by the fact that he wrote this at 3 AM than anything else. You do you, Henry. I just thought that I never really showed you how I kind of find the readings. So I know I mentioned that I find ones that aren't on the reading list on Google Scholar, but the Uni of Oxford has like a really good database, which we look on, called Solo. But to be honest, I only use Solo if I can't find it by Googling the reference, which I normally can manage, particularly when they're scientific articles. They're really niche, and then you have to troll through the more scholarly pages. But yeah, normally you can just Google the reference and it's fine. My hair right now is exactly as I had it in my like Hartford interview video, so this is just a tribute to that. If you've seen it, you'll know. If you haven't watched that, you should go and watch it because it's the cringiest thing ever, and to be honest, interviews are coming out soon. You might want to watch someone's vlog on it, you never know. I stayed up quite late last night, like not too late, like probably until just gone midnight, in order to get this reading finished. So I have indeed finished the reading. About 6,200 words. In terms of how much of the reading list I've actually done, the ones in purple I have read. And then the other ones I'm just gonna have open while I'm writing my plan, and then I can weave them in like that. Because I don't want to carry the reading on any longer than this, because I've got another essay due Sunday and then one again due the Friday, so I just don't have time to do any more. I'd rather get this planned and written on Thursday, so I've got longer to do the Sunday essay. I've only got half an hour this morning because I'm going to Warwick to film the rugby league team, play their match, and when I'm on the bus I'm going to start the reading for the next essay, or at least on the way back, so I might carry on with this on the way there if it's like fresh in my mind. But yeah, I'll just try and explain how I'm going about doing the plan. So I'm going to refer back to these points at the start. So I've got my 3 separate bits of the question, which means in my intro I need to have the definitions and the basic archaeological use. Once I've got these basic framework written down, then I go through my notes, I Control F, and I'll find a definition for each thing. Good morning everyone, today is Thursday and I have finished my plan now, so I stayed up until about 12:30 last night trying to finish my plan because I didn't get as much done on my journeys as I wanted to, but also had accounted for that, to be honest. So yeah, I now have a plan. I will go through the plan with you now, and then I'm going to spend the rest of today trying to get this whole essay written so that I can have it in on time and spend all day tomorrow and the weekend trying to do my next essay. Okay, so here is my finished plan. I kind of discussed how I was going to do the intro before, but here is kind of the amount of detail I've got. So I've got all of the basic definitions of isotopes along with who said it. That's really important because you need to have the citations in there for it to be stronger in terms of your arguments will be like backed by scientific articles as opposed to you just kind of making it up. In an exam, it's also good to remember these, not the page numbers so much, but if you can reference a person in an exam, then it looks like you know your stuff more, basically. I haven't really gone into these much. Originally, my plan said that I was going to talk about the positives and negatives of each, but that would just make my plan far too long and also unnecessary, considering I've got different sections where I'm going to explain that anyway. I will discuss how you get each isotope, but only in like a couple of sentences, and then also discuss what origins means, why it might be useful to look at someone's past, etc. I decided to then split my work into 2 main sections. So I've got dietary isotopes and provenance isotopes, and this is purely because we had a lecture on them at the start of the week and they were split like that in the lecture. If I hadn't had that lecture, I would just stick to these subtitles that I have, so I would have those in purple instead. And it would essentially follow the same structure but without those 2 main headings, and instead of discussing what a dietary isotope is in a little paragraph before I introduce the subheadings, I'd do it probably under each one. Yeah, I've got my next title, which is carbon isotopes, and on my plan I basically put everything that I'm gonna write in notes. It just makes it so much easier to then write an essay from it because you've got all of the information there, and all you need to do in the actual essay is then come up with like connectives and make them into real sentences. So I've talked about the differences between C4 and C5 plants, how they then transfer into the different carbon values, why that's good for finding people's origins, and then because half of the question is how well does this evidence stand up, I have introduced a case study. The newer the source the better, if possible. Particularly go for sources from the 2000s. I've done essentially the same thing for nitrogen isotopes, a little bit of an introduction, bring in a citation, and then go into a case study. My next section is provenance isotopes. I haven't written a little introduction here, but I will. So before I talk about oxygen isotopes, I'll talk about what these are, basically. Then discuss oxygen. Now, these ones are more relevant to the question, so as you see, I've done a lot more notes in my plan on those, because provenance isotopes are much better for identifying a person's origins. And so this section is basically going to be me chatting about how, yeah, we can use the other isotopes, but actually these ones can be better, particularly when used in conjunction with the other ones. So yeah, again, this is just instruction of what it is, how it works, and then here is a few basic criticisms and 2 case studies, which is a good amount. If the word limit seems to be too low for 2, then I'll just do 1. Same with strontium. Again, this is a big section. So again, I have a pretty new case study from 2018, which is about Stonehenge, which is super cool. Would absolutely recommend you go and read that. Whether you're interested in this or not, this is an interesting case study, I promise. Then a conclusion. So that's the question, just because I didn't want to keep scrolling up. I'll discuss the main use and limitation of each, which will answer how can they identify a person's origins, and then how well does it stand up. I essentially just answer the question by discussing what I've just said, which is when tested against other variables, each one tends to stand up. Conclusion, you don't want to bring in any new information, because conclusion is summing up your ideas that you've discussed already, so that wouldn't work. So that's my plan. I hope it made sense, although it makes sense to me and I'm the one writing the essay, so that's all that really matters. I'm now on 933 words. Ta-da. It is about 20 past 2, so to be honest, I could have definitely worked faster, but I stopped for like an hour to cook and eat, and also hit a bit of a rock when I'd got all of the stuff in my plan, but was still sure I didn't get it. Good morning, it is actually Friday now, and also the afternoon. I finished my essay last night about like 7, and I'm just gonna proofread it now, so I'll essentially just now show you what I've got and then how I proofread it and then send it off, and that is the essay process done. So here is my finished essay. I have my introduction, dietary isotopes introduction, carbon section, I missed that, nitrogen section, provenance isotopes, oxygen, strontium, conclusion, and my references. And all of that comes to 3,110 words, which is too many words, but oh well. The thing with Oxford essays is they're just kind of something to revise from and for the tutor to see that you've got it, so it doesn't matter too much that it's not like to the word count. And I'm done. My essay's submitted, it is in for the deadline, and I hope this video has helped break down how we at Oxford do manage to get in essays in like 3 days. And also I hope if anyone is writing an essay, this will perhaps help you to do it, particularly if you've left it until the last minute, which I guess most people do, as I also do. And to be honest, the only reason this is in on time is because I've got things that I'm looking forward to and making sure I've done everything before they happen. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!